So, Jen, well, hmm, I'm a terrible interviewer. What am I trying to say? What are you? Um, God, it's a bit late on a Friday.
It's about that time, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's been a long week. It's been a long winter. I don't know how it's been where you're at, but it has been winter forever until just this past week.
No, we've had like crazy climate change winter. It's been like there were days in February here because I'm in New Jersey.
Hmm.
There were days in February here where it was like 70 degrees.
Yeah, same.
And yeah, I was like, so it's been more, it hasn't been like the rough winter, wintry, snowy kind of rough winter, but it's been like an exhausting winter. Like, don't even know how to dress.
Yeah, for real. It's just like I've had colder winters, but it has been just an eternity. And we're over here in Illinois, where we usually get 2 seasons. This year we got 4 seasons within the span of a couple days. So there would be days where, like you said, it's February, but I can wear shorts outside and it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
And then it's freezing cold and snowing the next.
It's too much. We didn't get much snow. So I'll give it credit for that. We didn't get much snow. I don't want to deal with snow.
Yeah, I don't mind it so much. But, anyways, don't think I invited you on for the weather, although I am an old man. We could talk about the weather for the entire show. I don't know that anyone's going to listen to it. So instead, let's talk about what you've got going on. So you are involved in this little thing called Left of the Dial, right?
Mhm. Yeah, so left of the dial is kind of interesting. So what we do is we are a music website, and we cover primarily independent stuff, like independent music. Like I'll do an interview series with people who record out of their homes. So
Oh,
it's pretty cool, like entirely self-produced albums and things like that.
that's like real indie, not the
Yeah.
industry, not the genre indie.
Oh yeah, like that, and that's what's tricky about it too, is like trying to describe it and get across and like no, like the independent, not like indie when people are saying ending and they mean like the
Yeah,
org
like
who
yeah, like
makes like
Mumford and Sons,
$1 million.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, we'll cover local stuff because we're based out of Philly.
Hmm.
So we'll cover local stuff, we'll cover it's our genre niche is kind of like just whatever it is that we like because it's kind of like we're kind of focused on like pop punk ska kind of stuff, but it doesn't really have to be that. It just kind of has to be because our whole thing is that we're like, well, if we're gonna cover like super independent stuff,
Hmm.
we're only gonna cover stuff where like there's no real reason to like review an album that somebody self-released and like tear it apart because like who is that for?
Yeah, like
um
this one guy's 2 followers on SoundCloud are going to be really upset about this bad review you gave them.
right, it's like why even do that? Who is that for?
Yeah, for
So
real.
it's fun, and it's I kind of like got into it but like a friend of mine was doing videography stuff for them because we'll also do like live sessions
Oh
and
yeah.
film them. Yeah, it's really cool. And they invited me in, and then I was like, cool, camera stuff's cool, but actually mostly the thing that I'm better at is writing, and then all of a sudden now I'm the editor in chief, which is really fun. Um,
Fancy.
because yeah, it does sound fancy. Um, it sounds really legit, but it's like, I mean, it is legit of me, but it's also not.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, editor in chief on a small indie review
Yeah.
blog website.
So you see,
Yeah.
like, I think I looked up once. Yeah, let me look it up again. I looked up like what the editor in chief makes at like New York Times. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not
More
me.
more than both of us put together, I think.
Oh, yeah. As executive editor, Jill Abramson from the New York Times starting salary in 2011 was $475,000
In 2011.
in 2011,
Yikes.
which is crazy. I was like,
That's
okay.
that is nuts. But it's nice to see. I didn't know that the editor in chief of New York Times was a woman. That's good to see.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's actually still her.
Hmm.
That was just the first thing that came up on Google.
Well, it was at one point, and that's something.
That's progressive. So one day, hopefully, Left of the Dial will make enough money that I also make $400,000 covering the independent Philadelphia music scene.
Well, we're gonna put a link down in the doobly doo, so I think everybody's gonna go there afterwards. So maybe not 400K this year, but within five to
Next year,
ten.
right next
Sure.
year.
But yeah, I did get on there and I looked around a bit, realized I didn't know who any of these people were, which is fine. Um,
Well, that's kind of like, that's the vibe, is like covering stuff that's not getting covered all the time. So I feel like a lot of the like actual like major places are just covering the same bands over and over again, and it's like,
yeah, for real. Um, like kind of a parallel in the metal scene. It's like you can find places that are talking about new, cool, real stuff, and then everybody else is talking about Metallica still, or
yeah.
Korn, or Marilyn Manson put out a new album. It's like we really need to talk about Megadeth's new album this year. It sounds like Megadeth. We know what it is. It's fine. Whatever.
Right. And especially if like seven other places are also covering it.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's only so much exposure that's really well, I mean, I guess to parse that, all publicity is good publicity if you're, like a celebrity professional. But yeah, for the fandom side, there's only so much. Like I can only read so many articles about Ghost or Ramstein or whomever.
Right. No, for sure.
Whereas there are all these new interesting bands coming up doing either new cool stuff or doing old cool stuff really well. And like those just aren't getting as much attention. And it's good to look at those now because that's what the main people are going to be doing in like 5 to 10 years.
No, it's true. You get ahead of the curve.
Hmm. So I was on there and I did see that you have those live sessions, which I was impressed by. So there is like a physical left of the dial location then somewhere.
So our uh like the brain behind the whole thing is Kitsy, and they have like a studio basically in their basement, and we'll record stuff.
That
um
tracks.
it's really cool. They're like very talented, mixing and doing the sound engineering and stuff. It's like really cool. It's really cool to be a part of it, even though I'm not I'm not like a super videographer person, but it's kind of cool because it's like these bands a lot of the times are so like kinetic and
Hmm.
interesting anyway. It's like I could completely blow it on the camera and it would still look really cool.
And I imagine it probably just has like that feeling of being part of something, like being, involved in something that maybe doesn't matter in the big scheme of things, but like some of these bands may, or and artists may end up going somewhere. And so like to be the people that are like putting on their first shows or, early shows.
It feels it's really neat, and it's cool. Like, I mean, a lot of the times the people that we're working with, like if they are signed or they have like a manager or something, but a lot of times we're not like going through a, what am I trying to say? We're not like going through a major company to talk to people and like going through PR people. It's like we're usually working directly with the bands, so it's like it feels really cool, and it's like they actually know who you are. You're not just like somebody backstage taking pictures of like, I don't know, Taylor Swift or something who doesn't
Right.
give a shit about you, you know what I mean? So it's cool, and it's like um part of what I like about it is like um when you see stuff from like, it's a big, like Brooklyn Vegan or something, they cover a lot of the same music that we do. And this isn't me dissing them, but like a lot of the stuff that they put out will be just like quick press release snippets. This will be like blank, put out a song, listen to it here. But it's like we want to actually like, if we're gonna post it, especially since like we're all doing this um like on, in addition to like real jobs and things, it's like, well, if we're gonna put the time into it, we're gonna like really personalize what we're writing. So even if we do like a, oh, this band's doing a single, like we're gonna actually talk about how we feel about the single and not just like repeat the press release.
Right. Yeah.
It's really cool. It's cool. It feels more
That's
personal.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's great. One, for you and for people that are following the site, because they get, they get like the raw info on these bands and who's talking about them and how you guys feel about them. So it makes you guys look real. But then it's also really good for them because they're getting an outlet that's, like you said, really personalizing, really taking the time to like look at their music in an academic sense. It's,
Yeah, and try not to just feel like, oh, we're just covering this because like somebody told us to. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
like we got to get those indie cred points. So here's a couple bands you've never heard of. Now, anyways, back to these, you know, multi-platinum Grammy artists.
Right. Um, yeah, it's a lot of fun. What I really want to do too, though, is like we will do like interviews and album stuff and stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I really want to get like more of a, like a variety of features
Hmm.
and cover more like uh not like personal things. I want to be able to, I want to have the time to write stuff on there that is also covering like nerd shit. I just haven't
Sure.
figured out how yet.
You,
So, because it's
yeah.
like if I could like get like a multi faceted angle. Like I was thinking about trying to do like if I ever actually had the time between, like obviously it's more important to cover the bands, but I was like I would love to just like slip something in there that's like, well, I'm talking about the music from Cowboy Bebop today because I can.
Well, you did write up. Uh, you had that article about Maya Mane, I believe her specifically, and then just kind of Yoko Kanno's music and all the Cowboy Bebop stuff for the people who don't know, which is really good. Look it up, check it out. But yeah, you had written that article about her before, which I mean, I would think one you could probably just copy paste and
Yeah,
move
now
it over
that you
there.
say it, I'm like, I should just repost it for content. Especially
Um,
because I'm bad about like, because so that I had posted just on like my like personal WordPress thing, which I'm like really bad about upkeeping.
oh
So
yeah,
it's
me too.
like, I think my like, because you're supposed to like pay for the domain and I totally don't all the time. So it's like the URL is just constantly changing. So I should just put it. You're right. I should just copy and paste it over.
So before you do that, give us the inside scoop. What was tell us about that article about your thoughts on Maya Mane and her performances with Yoko Kanno because they're both. I mean, Yoko Kanno. legendary talent, but Mai Yamane is also a really good performer and a really good artist.
Oh yeah, like phenomenally good. I probably could beef it up a little bit because damn, maybe I really will do this. I'm making a note. Yeah, I'm gonna repost. I'm gonna add on to it because one of the things that I really like about the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack is like, which Yoko Kanno composed, was is that all of the songs are like diegetic to the universe.
Hmm.
So they all, it's not just like, oh, we're scoring this thing, and obviously these songs don't exist in the universe. All of the songs themselves like tell a story within the world where there's one song in this yeah, Mayamane is not on this track, but one of the songs from the movie is like Pretty with a Pistol or something.
Oh yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's like, well, this is what a top 40 song would sound like in this universe, and Faye's listening to it while she's like flying around and stuff. And like that's cool. Not just having like, oh, here's, a string piece that's playing
Yeah.
or whatever. And a lot of the Mayamane stuff is interesting because it's like a lot of the songs from her where she's singing as a character or whatever, um she's like singing as a character in the world,
Hmm.
and it'll be like a love ballad, whatever. But it's not just like, it's like she is a character living in the world. I'm pulling up the track list so I can remember what the fuck this song is called.
That is a
But
good point though, and I think
mhm.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I
No,
think
no,
that
it's
that
you're,
does go that does kind of go hand in hand with uh which Watanabe was is he? Uh
Shinichiro Watanabe.
yeah, I think that's the one. There's a couple different Watanabes, and I get them
Yeah.
confused. There's Shinichiro Watanabe, Junichiro Watanabe. Anyways, Watanabe was really adamant during the production or the in the pre-production about everything has to look like it actually exists in this world that people live here. So yeah, that's an interesting observation, and I think it really speaks. Again, Yoko Kanno doesn't need me to praise her, um, but the way that she structured those songs so that they would, like you said, sound like their characters or they're coming from a real place in that world.
Yeah, because it's like I've heard people describe things before as saying like, um, you ever hear somebody talk about like a show or a movie and they say like, oh, the setting is also a character?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of how I feel like, and it's not just with Cowboy Bebop, but with a couple things that Yoko Kanno has scored, where it's like the music is a character in and of itself. I
Oh,
looked up
for
the
sure.
song. The one that I was thinking of in particular was Don't Bother None,
Hmm.
which is one of the ones that Mayumane sings. And that one's interesting because it's like you have this whole, one of the many themes in Cowboy Bebop is like about class and things like that, and like how even though they have all this futuristic shit, you still have people who are like doing manual labor making these time warp things and shit. And so some of the songs will be from the perspective of those kinds of people, and it kind of goes with a lot of the blues songs, the bluesier
Hmm.
songs that are on there, because it's like blues
No, the
songs are about
working man's music.
working man's music, poor man's music. And that's what I like, is one of the Mayumane songs is just about her like being poor and stealing from people. And it kind of rules. And it's like her voice is so unique. There's a
Hmm.
better way to say that. I'm sure I wrote a better description of it before. But it's like she has such a like characteristic, she has such a something that I would probably write down better, that
Yeah.
it's like it just really adds this dimension to it all, more than just if you had like some guy singing it, you know what I mean?
Speaking of some guy singing it, several of those songs are also sang by Steve Conti,
You got it, yeah.
who I like his versions as well. I think it depends on which track. Like I feel like Rain is better by My Yamane.
Hmm.
But then I couldn't imagine something a My Yamane cover of Call Me would be awesome, but it's the Steve Conti version that was in the show, so that's like the version, at least to me.
Hmm. Yeah.
There's a big fat kitty.
Nice bagel.
Bagel? That's a good name for a cat.
Thank you. Uh, shit. Now I can't remember what when they play Rain in the show. Is it the Mayamani version? Right.
I think so.
It's kind of goofy because I know I had like technically I didn't have it. My parents had like all the soundtracks,
Hmm.
like the CDs, and I think on the CD that you get with like I think it's like the whatever you got with the DVD set. The CD has the Steve Conti version, but it's like the TV show actually plays the Mayamani version.
Yeah.
But anyway, but yeah, I like both of those versions a lot. But that's what's cool about them too is it's like they're so distinct that it's like the two versions of the songs are like I don't want to say totally different songs, but
Yeah, they're different flavors.
yeah,
You can choose if you want Coke or Pepsi.
right.
They do
And
the
it's
same
like
things, but
it's not like I don't know. Sometimes it's like on anime soundtracks,
hmm,
they'll do things where it's like, oh, we're having one of the voice actors sing the song, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's
yeah, which I
like
guess
we're having
it's a bigger
sorry.
it's a bigger thing over there, but I don't
Yeah,
care.
it's like I don't like whatever. Like you're having the I don't know, the mean girls singing the opening, like whatever.
Especially there are those moments where they do the same thing but with the English voice actors.
Oh, I hate when they do that. The
Yeah,
only show that I think was good at that, did you ever see Beck Mongolian Chop Squad?
I've seen some of it. It's been on my list.
That's one of the few ones where I think like having the English dub, having them actually re-record the song
Hmm.
works because it's like most of the songs are in English anyway, so you don't have that weird clunky translation where they're like trying to make the Japanese stuff mix in with the like fit the cadence of the song.
Right.
And it kind of works better anyway because it's like not to be disrespectful, but like some of the songs in Beck when it's like a Japanese singer singing the English, there's just like little moments where it's like grammatically incorrect and you can't help but be like
Oh, right. I'm watching a cartoon.
right. Wait, I have to open the door for my cat really fast before
Sure.
she tears my thing apart. I'm gonna be so fast though. Get out of here.
Beat it.
Eat it. Because if not, she's gonna like tear my carpet.
Oh, yeah, we don't want that.
But yeah. Beck for Beck, I think it worked. But I remember watching like the Haruhi, yeah, the Haruhi Suzumiya, Melancholy Haruhi Suzumiya, and they do the, which is actually the same in the English. It's the same voice actress. It's Wendy Lee. It's who did
Hmm.
Faye Valentine. But they do when they do like the school talent show thing, they do an English cover of God Knows, and I'm like, I don't want to hear that. No offense, lady, but
Yeah. Like, stick to the voice acting.
it's like you're not fooling me. I know that.
Yeah.
Like it's funny because I guess it's like they want to do it to like keep the immersion, but it's like I know I'm watching something in Japanese. You can just have her sing in Japanese real
Yeah.
quick.
We know it's fine. It's okay. You can just cut back to the Japanese audio for the song.
Mhm.
Another one that was always really bad about it was Love Hina.
I didn't see that actually. Tell me.
Oh, I
I know what it is, but
I don't think it's going to be worth anyone's time to go back to Love Hina at this point. It's really strange that this was the biggest anime in the world for like a couple years.
it was.
At least here in the US. I don't know what it actually did in Japan, but I mean it got two full anime series and several different OVAs, and all the mangas sold out, and so it did okay. And yeah, when back in that first 2000s anime boom, it's just Love Hina and Evangelion all day long.
What a combo. You know what also got big that I thought was weird? And I mean, maybe you like it, and I don't want you to be offended. But I just thought it was so weird that Elfin Lied, I think is how you pronounce
Mm,
that was huge.
for some reason,
Okay, thank you. I was like,
I Elfen Lied is like anime's edgy teen phase of like, this isn't kids cartoons. This is real. This is serious.
it's
This is
so
really serious. And it's so dark. It's so grim. It's hilarious.
yeah, it's so serious it goes back to being funny. I'm like watching this girl get her fucking like this tiny child get her limbs cut off, and I'm like, that's funny.
I was I I was curious. Everyone's talking about how good it was. And this was back in, you know, back in the day when it was still hot. Like, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. And like episode 3 or 4, trigger content warning for anybody that needs it. So there's a girl, one of the characters, a little girl, and her mom remarried and her stepdad is abusing her, and her mom blames her for it, and then they say, sorry, we're out of money, you have to leave. So she's on the street and she's starving, and it's her birthday, and her puppy died. And I just said, look, Elfen Lied, if you're not going to take this seriously.
It was like sometimes it reminded me. Do you know the like Christmas shoes song?
Oh yeah,
That's what it reminded me of sometimes. It was just like the most depressing thing. And I was like, come on, like
we're going all the way in, and apparently the manga is even worse. There's like a girl who has like some sort of psychosis, anxiety induced incontinence, so she's got to wear diapers all the time.
that happens in the show too. Because I think that I remember I don't remember when, but I remember that was my breaking point. I think it well, it might be a different character, but there's a point where the main girl, because she's like going back and forth between being crazy killer and then little baby, whatever,
Creepy.
all
Yeah.
infantilized. And she like pees herself at one point, and I was like, I'm done. I can't watch this. That's my limit. And I
It's
can tolerate a lot.
it's hilarious. Like, and then there are people who think that it's a serious show. Like, there are people that are trying to sell you on like, no, it's really serious. This is real art. Like, just because it's really dark doesn't mean that it's good.
People were like really pushing it as like a philosophical. I was like, I guess. Why don't you just watch Evangelion, you freak?
And oh, boop. Okay, well that's our cue. Because right after this, we're gonna take a break, and right after this, leading off of your philosophical, uh, people trying to push this as a philosophical ideal. I started watching Death Note for the first time the other day.
Oh, how does that
So,
hold up in 2023?
well, we'll talk about it right after the break.
Cool.
And we're back. I'm here with Jenn Coulter. We're discussing anime that used to be very popular, and I informed her that I have just recently started watching Death Note for the first time. Now, for the kids out there, or the newcomers that might not know, Jen, can you tell us how big Death Note was back in 2006, 2007?
Woo, definitely was like everything. I think even in I think in 2007 they had Death Note merch at Hot Topic, which I think is an indicator.
I think you could go to Hot Topic and find Death Note merch now.
Now, yeah, I think so too. I remember, oh my gosh. I well, not to. I remember there being fan art of Light and L literally everywhere online in 2007.
It it just came out at this perfect moment. It was the right show at the right time because like that was also in the like emo stuff was still really big and
Mhm.
Hot Topic was really big and the internet was just starting to really catch on. This is the MySpace days. And Adult Swim and then Death Note lands and it's just so edgy and so like it's just so what it is. Like it's so edgy and it's so convinced of its own like its own importance. So you had said before that or people talked about Elfen Lied as being this really philosophical piece of art, and it's just kind of not. And Death Note is sort of the same thing, where it's like, oh, it's this big moral question: is it wrong to kill criminals? But they're criminals. If we kill them, we get rid of them. And so it's like baby's first moral quandary, right?
It really is, yeah. I
Uh,
like the show. I think it's at its best when it's just like not doing that and it's just being like super silly, heightened drama, like Ellen Light being like, if I take a potato chip out of this bag, he's gonna know I'm Kira. That's the best parts of Death Note. And then when they're actually trying to be serious, I'm like, yeah, yeah, we already like I get it. You don't agree with Light. We're not supposed to agree with Light. Okay, cool, cool. Move on. I'm trying to
and
see Misa be a freak.
and so I had seen some of it. I had read like the first volume of the manga, I think, and I was, whatever. I was also in high school at the time, so it was really popular. Therefore, I did not like it. I had already liked anime for so long before this. Yeah, all the posers just came in. Um, so I never really I gave it a chance, but maybe not as much of one as I could have. I'd never sat down and tried to watch it from the beginning. So as for how it holds up in 2023, the first 10 episodes or so, I haven't finished it all the way. We're still kind of in the teens as far as the episodes go. The first 10 episodes or so are really entertaining. It's really engaging television. It's really well written. Well, for anime, it's 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 like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure with no sense of humor.
Yes. Yeah, I don't think Death Note is like aware of how silly it is, which
Yeah,
I think kind of makes it more fun, but
because it's just so, like you said, I'll take a potato chip and eat it. And it's like slow motion and there's choir music behind him and they've got all this special lighting for the that particular scene. Uh, and he's writing names in a notebook and eating chips at his desk.
it's so
But
funny.
they sell you on the idea. They get you so invested in what's going on. But at the end of the day, it really just does come down to that famous JoJo line of "I outsmarted you." Aha! But I outsmarted your outsmarting.
It
Uh,
really
it's kind of just that back and forth for however long the show. And
is.
then
Oh, sorry.
uh,
I
I
was
was
gonna
gonna,
say I was gonna say and it's fun. I like notoriously I think like the quality drops off after a certain
mm,
point. So
yeah,
it's like you ride that high now because
yeah. I was just about to say we have gotten to that point last night.
oh okay. Yeah.
So like right around the first 10 episodes are really good. Right around that point is where spoilers for Death Note, I guess. Um, right around that point, they do the memory wipe, and the whole show just
Oh my god. Well, wait, I have to look up how many episodes are there?
37, I think.
If you think that's the drop off point, I have some bad news for you.
Oh boy.
But I won't tell you.
So I was really invested. I was having a great time. This is a lot of fun. I don't buy into the moral sophistication at all. I don't buy that at all. Um, but it's really engaging television. And then we're just gonna hit pause on that and just fart out all the tension that we've built up throughout the series. We'll just pause and do this other thing for a while. And it's like it had no sense of humor, and then it suddenly has a sense of humor, but it's weird because that's not who this show is. So it just feels really strange. Why are you acting like this? That's not who you are. And the animation just takes a huge dump. Like everybody, like Misa's first 3 episodes, she's off model in like every shot. Her eyes are over here, and she's like this. She, it's hilarious.
Oh,
And
poor
like some of the wide shots of them, like Light's face is just a square.
Have you? I'm trying to think. I guess you haven't gotten to the. I guess it's still the first opening song, right? Like you haven't gotten to the second opening song
We
yet.
got to the second opening last night,
Okay,
and I was
nice.
like, the tale of two shows.
I love the second. I remember when I first watched it, I like didn't like the second opening because I was like, this is silly. But now I've my third eye is opened and I'm like, this rules. It's like one of my favorite anime openings because it's just so much. I'm like, I want more things that look like this.
Oh, this is silly. Wait, the whole thing is silly. What?
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, right.
And so we were watching through the first part. It's like this is really good. Why did I never give this a chance? And we got to the second opening. It's like, oh,
Oh.
this is the Death Note I remember everyone talking about. This sucks. I don't care about anything that's happening right now.
Yeah, it's gonna stay like that.
Oh boy.
But it's like I think that now at least like watching it now as opposed to like when it was airing and like being disappointed. Now you can kind of
Yeah.
all right. I don't have high expectations at this point in my life.
Yeah, there's no investment for Death Note in 2023. It's run its course. It's over. Um,
I really want
but
to see. They have the oh right. I was gonna say they have the live action, not the I wasn't even thinking about the Netflix live action. I
mhm.
forgot they did that goofy shit. But
Yeah.
they have I think they're still making like I know they have live action movies in Japan of Death Note, and I think they might actually still be doing Death Note shit.
Mhm.
But I also might be lying.
Well, as with anything in the industry, you just keep
Keep
keep it
pumping.
up until it stops making money. That's why you can still find Yu Yu Hakusho merch. You can still find like well, Evangelion is what it is.
Oh yeah. I
So
don't think they're ever gonna let Evangelion.
so you've talked a lot about Evangelion. Tell the audience about Evangelion.
Oh man, what a topic. I love Evangelion. It's such a fascinating thing because it's like, okay, I always like my instinct is to be like, even though I really, really love it, I'm like, it's not that good. And then I watch it again, I'm like, I lied. It is that good. I don't care about its flaws, actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's so fascinating because it's like there are things that people will fixate on, like a lot of the like religious imagery, but it's like I really think that's like the most boring part, like the
Mm.
most like I don't want to say half-assed, but just like the least coherent.
Yeah, as I understand, when they're making it, they didn't care about what any of these things were. They just thought they looked cool. It's like, yeah, well, angels, we'll put some crosses in there. It'll be sick, whatever. Nobody's gonna take this seriously. It's a kids show in Japan. Who cares?
I think that it's cool that they were just like, fuck it, this looks cool. But I do like there are people I remember when I first watched it, when I was in like high school or whatever, and going to like blogs that were like dedicated to explaining Evangelion and stuff. And I was like, wow. And then I watched it. I think I've seen it through like 4 or 5 times at this point.
Wow.
And because I'll show it to other people and I'll end up watching it with them. And I'm like, I remember reading all these theories about like what angel is which and like what it corresponds to. And I'm like, I just don't think there's that. I think I mean, like, I think the psychological stuff is pretty strong.
Hmm.
Um, but when people are doing all the like in-depth biblical parallels, I'm like, relax. Like, relax.
Yeah, and that's kind of how. So I've got a bit of a complicated relationship with Evangelion because I watched it, um, and I was looking for all the stuff that you were just talking about, all the stuff that people talk about. Is like, oh, this big, religious symbolism and all these literary, cinematic, or academic aspects. And I'm like, I'm not seeing it. I must be missing something. So I'd research. I would watch the movie, and I'm still not getting it. I'm putting the pieces together, but it doesn't work. And then I'll read some more, watch the other movie. I'm not getting it. And then eventually, it was revealed to me that there's nothing to get. It's just
You're
not
just
there.
lying. And I think it's a shame too, because it's like, I think it kind of missells it. I mean, there are things about it that I think are like fantastic. Like, I think the character writing is really, really good. I think that the more experimental episodes where it's like in their minds are really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
And like the psychological aspects of it. Like I'll rewatch it. I think it's really, at least in terms of the characters, it's like really tight. Because it's like there are things that they'll reference in an earlier episode. Um, like Misato will say something in an earlier episode. And if you've seen the show four, 4 or 5 fucking times, like I have, you're like, oh, okay, like I get, like they knew what they were doing that early on.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't always, with anime or anything, any TV show, it's like I feel like you don't always get the idea that they had the vision from the beginning with where they want a character to
Right.
go. And I think that stuff's really strong. And then I think that the actual like overarching plot maybe necessarily isn't. I don't know what a lot of the stuff is still. And it's like I know it does one of those things where it's like it has the manga series which goes in a totally different direction. It has a bunch of like supplementary stuff and it's like, oh, you could fill in blanks that way. And I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. Like if you
Yeah,
didn't tell me,
I'd rather not. I shouldn't have to do the work.
right,
I'm fine with doing work, but like don't tell me that there's something behind the curtain if I can just figure it out and then there's nothing there.
right.
It's like that old bit from Family Guy. It's like it doesn't even have an engine. It just has a drawing of an engine. And that's kind of how I felt. So I was really bitter to the entire franchise for so long. I'm starting to come back because if you do take it at face value, it's still giant robots fighting monsters, which is always cool.
Mhm.
And the psychological stuff, the character stuff, there's still a whole lot of things to like. Um, I'm just salty because I got tricked.
No, yeah. Yeah, I think I was like, I think when I first watched it, it was like 14 or 15 too.
Hmm.
So it was probably helpful that I was like, even if there had been big giant themes, I would have been too stupid to get them anyway. So I was like, I just don't have to think about this. But yeah, it's like a lot of that stuff. Um and then like even a lot of the like literal plots, like I think I've seen it a bunch of times. I still don't really understand what the deal with Sele is and shit. And like
Yeah.
I don't care ultimately. Like whatever. I want to see Asuka be insane.
Which I think I was trying to justify it to myself more recently that maybe that's kind of part of the point is like all of this other stuff doesn't matter because
Right.
the characters are unwell. So like it's not the plot doesn't make any sense and none of this stuff is ever explained or revealed. but it doesn't matter because that's not what the show is actually about. But
Yeah, so
that feels like me making excuses for them though, because they really want you to try and figure it out. But anyway,
it's just like super, super ambitious. And a lot of it, I like it. I like it a lot, and I a lot of it doesn't work, but so much of it works so well.
yeah, it works well enough most of the time,
Mhm.
and if you're not trying to figure out the plot and you're able to look elsewhere, then yeah, there's a lot to like about it. Like I no longer begrudge people who enjoy Eva. Um, and I'll watch it again eventually.
I think End of Evangelion is just like clears so many anime movies, like just
Hmm.
blows down the water. I think it's better than a lot of like I don't know. End of Evangelion is so good, but what I don't think are good. I don't even think this is controversial at this point. I don't. The rebuild movies are like I don't know about those ones. I don't think I like them.
I watched the first one, I think, but it's been so long. It really does. I mean, from what I understand, it goes in a different direction, but it really just feels like a way to reanimate Evangelion again for the 10th time.
Well, it's like the first movie is just a recap, and then it starts going in a different direction. The second one is kind of cool because it shows you more of the world and stuff and
Hmm.
fleshes out some other stuff. Like you see more of the like apocalyptic effects of. There's a really cool thing in the second movie where it's like establishing about how like the ocean is red and shit and like a
Hmm.
bunch of sea life is dead. And Kaji, whatever, takes them to an aquarium that's like the only shark left in the world is in, and the only blue water left in this world is in this one spot, and they're all like getting really excited because they didn't know fish existed, and I'm like, that's cool.
That's some good world building. That's true.
But then it does some other stuff. There's a fourth, well, there's like a new pilot.
Yeah, they had
You,
that other girl.
you sit through like two and a half. Those movies are long.
Yeah.
They're not 2.5 hours, but they're like at least 2 hours. And I'm like 4 hours of extra rebuild content. And I'm like, I still don't know what the fuck the deal with this girl is.
Well, we needed to sell more body pillows and
It really is.
pervy
And then like
figurines.
the last third of the fourth movie, they're like, oh, by the way, here's her backstory. And I'm like,
Cool, thanks.
I was like, you honestly, they should have just not. They should have just been like, let's be real.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
And
Something
I think she's fun, but sorry, I made that up.
I was gonna say with something like Eva that's already so densely packed, trying to wedge another character in there is
Yeah.
gonna be a hard task, especially since so much of the story is about the characters and their dynamics against one another. So you have that really tight web of like Shinji and Asuka and Rei, and then Misato, and then so trying to just drop another character in the middle. I think, yeah, fool's errand really. But they made four of them, and they got tons of money to do so, and they got a lot of money out of it. So what do I know?
They sure did. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, I guess it worked, so whatever. You want to add more plot? Sure.
That means we can make more Evangelion movies afterwards explaining the new plot.
I hope they don't. I really hope they don't.
Me too, but I think we might be stuck with it. Evangelion might be one of those forever series. Like, well, we got there wasn't Dragon Ball for a while, and then there was again, and we're still here.
Yeah. At least with Dragon Ball, it's like I feel like you could get away with doing that forever because it's like,
Nobody's watching Dragon Ball for the story.
right. But how
The story
many?
hasn't been good since the Frieza saga, so nobody's here for the story.
I
Uh,
liked Majin Buu. I will say that.
I did like Majin Buu. I liked Buu as a character. I liked
It was
Fat Buu, and
goofy.
then I liked Super
Goofy as
Buu.
fuck.
Um, but as far as like actual story writing, I think Frieza's where it should have ended. I could see a way where they could work in Cell by don't have Goku come back. It's just Gohan and the others. Have Cell be strong, but not as strong as Frieza, because Frieza's been the most powerful thing in the universe for, you know, generations. And then, oh, we can just build a robot.
I love when it's so funny when they do that. They're like, wait, I know we said this guy was super powerful, but we actually lied. And then Dragon Ball power scaling is so fun. It's
Mm.
so goofy, and I know like people will criticize it, but it's like, you know what? I think it's so fun that they're just like, yeah, we actually lied last time. There is another Saiyan level, and there are more
And
aliens.
it's even more powerful. This time it's blue.
It's blue. Or like in what is it? GT, where they just
Hmm.
like they're more powerful this time, because they have mullets.
And I think Dragon Ball might be probably the only series that could really get away with that, because what are you gonna say? It's Dragon Ball. Like, you can't hurt its feelings. It knows exactly what it is, and every other show has copied it since. So
And they're
tough.
not doing it. They're not doing it like there's so many things that are like obviously that are inspired by Dragon Ball and pick up cues from it,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine. But I'm like, you're not getting away with it the way they get away with it. So
Yeah, nobody can do it quite like Akira Toriyama, and I think mostly just because he doesn't care. It's like, I'll just do what I want to do, and you're gonna like it either way.
and I think it's fascinating. I think this was him, but it might have been somebody else. I like it when you get creators of super ongoing series like that, and someone will point out like a plot hole, like, oh, in Dragon Ball in fucking 1995 or something, you wrote this, and then in a later in 2021 you wrote this, and he's like, I don't fucking remember. Get over it. Like, it's like I'm just gonna do it. Like, fuck you.
Shut up, nerd.
I love shit like that where he's like, Dragon Ball, relax. You think I remember what I did in Dragon Ball? Dragon Ball?
Yeah, it's Dragon Ball. It doesn't matter. Calm down.
Stuff like that is so fun.
I guess that's a lot. We've talked quite a bit about old anime. We could keep going
Yeah,
because I've
I
watched a
could,
lot of old anime.
I could keep
Let's
going.
keep talking about old anime. I was gonna say we can talk about new stuff, but I haven't actually watched a lot of new stuff. Like, I started watching Chainsaw Man and I really liked it, and then I just didn't keep up with it because it was still coming out and blah blah blah. And I watched the
Yeah.
first season
Oh,
of Spy Family, which was really good. Um, Super cute, liked it a lot. But there's so much stuff coming out, and it all just kind of washes together.
no,
There's a few standouts every season, but
ignore most. I used to like watch multiple things that were airing at once. And I don't know why, so I don't remember a lot of them. Like I guess every once in a while I would find like a gem, I guess, that people weren't talking about as much. But
hmm.
right now, I was watching Chainsaw Man. I'm read the manga, so I'm like caught up on that. And I really like that. But for shows, I honestly the only thing I've gotten really, really excited about is the new Gundam.
Hmm.
And even then it's kind of cheating because it's like it's not new. It's a new story. It's like the Gundam Witch from Mercury. It's like its own timeline. So it's like you could just go in blind, which a lot of people have done. Which is fun for me. There's a bunch of my friends who never bothered with Gundam before. They're like, oh, I'll watch this one. because it's girls this time. And I'm like, yeah, great marketing, because
I
now I can
mean,
get other people to watch.
what else can you do with Gundam? Let's make them girls.
Let's make them girls. And I was like, wow.
Boom,
Like, not
whole
even
new
joking. I
series.
was like, innovative. That's great. Of course. Why haven't we thought of this
Let's
before?
tell the same story, but with girls. Suddenly it's completely different. I didn't know. I guess I always assume that there's a new Gundam series out because there is. I don't know anything about this one, so I didn't realize that there was a girl Gundam show out.
This one's fun. This one, they really did. What was the last Gundam before this? I don't even remember. I'm not gonna look it up. But yeah, this one is actually, they are doing like a totally different thing. 'Cause this is, so are you like familiar with how the Gundam timeline? Yeah.
Kind of war in space. People born in space don't like people born on Earth. They're psychics at some point, and
Yeah. You could be a super ultra Gundam fan, and that's still about as they're psychics at some point, shrug. It's
yeah,
really how it is.
I've
Um,
go ahead.
I was gonna say, so it's like there's a bunch of different like timelines, and it's like there's the UC timeline, which is the main one that has like Char and shit,
Mhm.
and then mm, almost everything else is like its own isolated
Right,
thing. Kind of like how like Final Fantasy is, where it's like, well, you get a lot of the same elements and like uh I don't know, abilities and whatever, but they're all like self-contained or whatever.
right.
Um, so this one is like, forget about all the politics that we established before and the other ones. This time, everybody's like racist in a different way, and this one, everybody hates the Earthians, which
Fair
is
enough.
new. Well, no, I guess they hated Earth before. Anyway, but on this one, it's like as it's like Gundams are illegal, and but the main character has a Gundam and she doesn't realize it's a Gundam, and it's a whole thing that I'm not going to get into because then I'll get really boring. And but the very first episode, which really sold a lot of people who were not interested in Gundam before, was that it kind of is. The first episode is kind of like the Revolutionary Girl Utena setup,
Mm.
where the new girl shows up to school, gets in a duel with this guy, except it's a Gundam duel, beats him, and then all of a sudden they're like, well, now you're engaged to this girl.
Does her Gundam turn into a penis car at any point?
No,
Mm.
but we're not done yet, so it could
It could still happen. There's still time.
still happen. But so it's like she's married to like, well, she's engaged to the rich girl, and all this back and forth, and they're doing all this like, there's the typical like corporate espionage shit going on, and it's fun. We're on. It took a break, so it just came back. Um, I think I think it's going to be like 26 episodes. So we're on like 14, 13 or 14. I really like it. That's really good. I think
That's
it's
good
going
to
to
hear.
be I think it's going to be politically incoherent, and I think that's fine. I don't have faith in like the themes it's going for,
Yeah, but
but
you got gay girls driving
I
giant robots, and we could
so
all use more of that.
that's what I'm saying. I'm like, these bitches gay. They can have whatever politics they they could go to the end of the series and they could totally hard pivot and be like, the theme could be like colonization is good, and I'd be like, it's fine.
Yeah, but they're gay, so it's okay.
As long as those girls kiss at the end, they can do whatever they want, which they should, because I don't think they're gonna do the. You get a lot of the things like where they're like baiting people because they
Hmm.
clearly are just trying to like angle for a certain audience.
Mhm.
They're like actually engaged, so I
Oh,
think because it's like, yeah, they're like openly they're married. They're going to be married. So I'm like, you can't back out now.
They're cousins now.
Oh,
Uh,
you
um,
know how mad I would be. But yeah, no, that
yeah,
was
and that's really nice to hear because I mean the industry, I mean the world in a lot of ways, but staying with anime, uh, and I guess animation in general, there's a lot more acceptance. There's a lot more willingness to put those kind of themes and a diversity of characters into uh, into products, into series, animes and manga, where you wouldn't get that before necessarily, unless it was like in a really gross, kind of creepy way.
yeah.
So it is nice to see that there's more coming out of that. Um,
Yeah, I'm actually I'm sure they exist and I just don't see them, but I'm kind of surprised that I don't see more people getting mad about this iteration of Gundam and being like, oh, I don't know, it's like woke now because they're
yeah,
girls and
I'm sure those guys are out there
they
somewhere,
gotta be.
or
Which
maybe
would
they're okay
be
because it's got girls kissing. Well,
it's
not yet, but the
sit
fan art
level
has
of it.
girls kissing.
The fan art does. The fan art is unhinged. It was on a break for a while and it
Hmm.
was like I swear I'd see artists who would draw like cute, pictures of the two girls or whatever. And I think they were going feral, like waiting for it to come back. Because it was like the horniness of the fan art was just increasing in its absence. I'm like, oh my God, a couple months ago you were drawing them holding hands. Now you're drawing them like with each
Like
other on a leash.
need more Gundam, need more Gundam.
So it's got the chokehold that this show has on some of these fan artists, which good, good marketing.
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that the success of your anime is proportional to how much pornography it can create. So, if
Hmm.
you make a show that has characters that people want to see, you're gonna make money.
You're gonna make money.
It
It's
doesn't
not.
even have to be a good show. I
It does.
mean, Love
Well,
Hina was the biggest thing for
exactly. Let's circle back to
uh, let's
that.
circle back instead to Revolutionary blah, 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 blah. That gay one. Tell us about that gay anime
Oh, that's another big one. Oh man.
because it is iconic within the fandom as being like this is the lesbian anime.
Yeah. It's that's an interesting one. Actually, it's kind of similar thematically to Evangelion in a lot of ways. Um, Not stylistically it's similar really, but like it has a lot of those grander themes of like psychological themes and stuff. Um, oh my gosh, it's like very, very dense. It's very dense in a way that people say Evangelion is,
Hmm.
but I think this actually is. But it's also so goofy and knows that it's goofy because it's a really challenging series because it'll have these like really dark themes of like sexual abuse and um child abuse and literally every trigger warning ever is covered in it. But then it'll also have in between episodes that are like about the popular girl at school turning into a cow or like there's an episode where she lays an egg.
I had heard about that one.
Which that one is a little more like there's parallels with the egg laying that
Hmm.
like themes symbolism you can pick up on. The
Yeah,
cow maybe not so much, but
I'm gonna say you have girls, you have eggs.
you got girls, you got it.
Connect the dots, people.
Yeah,
And this is I never actually got the name out earlier. This is Revolutionary Girl. I always said Utina. Is it Utna? Utena?
you could I say Utna, but then every time I say it out loud, it doesn't sound right.
Yeah, that feels weird to me. Utna. That just well, Revolutionary Girl, Utana or Tena. That's what we're talking about here. And we're gonna keep talking about that as well as representations of gay, bi, LGBTQ, queer people in media in general. Right after the break. And we're back here with Jenn Coulter. We were just discussing old anime because we couldn't find any good anime to talk about. If you've got recommendations, put them down in the comments. That's what those are called. Put them down in the comments. We'll get real busy not watching them. So we left off talking about revolutionary. Ugh, my God,
It's a tough one.
Revolutionary Girl, Utana, and how it's so gay.
It really is.
And we were talking some about how there's a lot more openly gay anime, and uh, even more so here in the West. Like we're watching through Steven Universe. I never finished it. Anyways, we're watching Steven Universe currently when we're not watching Death Note,
Oh,
and
what a
that
good combo.
is like such an iconic gay queer series because it's got so much in it. Anyways, for the real question, for somebody that might not understand, why is this important? Why is it important to have representation in media? That's the big question here.
It's interesting. And well, on a super specific level, with Revolutionary Girl Utena, whatever the fuck, however they say her name,
Yeah, that one show,
that show
the gay woman
actually
penis car.
it does have the so that actually was a huge influence on Steven Universe.
Mm.
Like I think I don't remember exactly which scene, but I know there's at least one scene that's like shot for shot, like an homage to an Utena scene,
I,
which
I
is really
believe that.
cool. It's definitely there. And I mean, I don't want to say that like Steven Universe wouldn't exist without it, but I think it would definitely be a lot different
Mm.
if it didn't have that. And I feel like just on that level, the fact that you have a show from when did that come out? 19 oh
89, I'm guessing.
no. No, it was in the 90s for sure.
Mm.
1997.
Oh, I didn't realize it was. I thought it was older.
Yeah.
Back in the dark ages, everyone.
I it
All
all
you,
blends together.
yeah, all you young kids before 2010, anime is just kind of
It's just
all
old.
over. Like before Adult Swim, there's pre and post Adult Swim
This is a good way to
in
separate
the
it actually.
timeline.
But
But
no,
anyways,
97. Utena 97. And for something like that to influence a show, I don't know, Steven Universe was like fucking 2013 maybe,
something like that.
something like that. And I feel like, I mean, that in and of itself, I think speaks to the importance to a degree because 100% the reason why like Rebecca Sugar would have connected with Revolutionary Girl Utena was because like it has a bunch of gay shit in it. Like, oh my gosh, if you were to watch Utena now, you would totally see a lot of these character arcs and be like, oh yeah, that's Pearl.
Hmm.
um, which I'm not saying in like a derogatory way to Steven Universe. It's just like you can see the influence there.
Right.
Um, which is to say, um, I like the fact that this series is so influential still and like so important later on is because there really wasn't, it's not just that it has all these like LGBTQ themes, but I think it's a big part of it is it's it set it apart from a lot of its peers. And even from like 97 to, even if you looked at like 97 to 2007, like that decade, there's not going to be that much like um anime
Mm.
adaptations of Yuri shit, you know?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I'm trying to think of specifically Yuri, female series. There's a lot of yaoi stuff. My
Mhm.
older sister got really into yaoi stuff. So,
I know there's,
Gravitation, Fake,
oh yeah, I remember
Yami no
Gravitation.
Matsui, a lot of that. All of your OG pretty boys kissing each other or staring
I,
longingly because you can't kiss on TV.
right. I know, oh my gosh. I know like there's a lot of manga that was out
Mm.
for sure that like girl shit. But anime, like I can think of Strawberry Panic. I can think of stuff that was like,
Like really, really tame and fluffy. Like it's not like in your face gay.
yeah, a lot of like bait, a lot of bait
Yeah.
stuff. I actually, I was talking about this. I was doing a group watch with friends. Actually, this is a good example. This will loop back around. I got a little off topic. I was doing a group watch with friends. We were watching My Hime because that was a series that I watched when I was like 15, I think. I think it came out in 2007, I think. And I watched it a couple years after it came out. And My Hime was big in certain circles because two of the girls kiss.
Mm.
And it was like, well, obviously I'm gonna watch this. The pickings are slim, and that's enough. That's all I need to hear. And so I was like, me and this friend group will like rotate stuff, and it was my turn to pick. So I was like, oh, let's watch this thing I watched like when I was really young. And I was like pitching it, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like, there was a bunch of fan art of the two girls.
Mm.
They're like not healthy though. And it's like the predatory
Mm.
lesbian trope, and it's like they
Ooh.
don't get established until like the final third of the series. And uh, there's like a bunch of weird like fan service stuff with the other girls, but nothing explicit. Characters are like full on homophobic. And I was like,
Oh,
well, that was my option. Like it was like this.
yeah.
And I did watch Utena. There was Strawberry Panic, which was not good. That was not good just because it's just not very good. It's like soap opera silly,
Yeah.
which there's a place for that, but I watched some of Burst Angel, and that's like I
Mm.
actually started rewatching that now because after I watched My Hime, I was like, well, let me watch this other thing that I remember people talking about being kind of gay, and I like it hasn't even happened yet, and I'm like 15 episodes in.
Well, you got two girls on screen at the same time.
But it's
And I
like
mean, also looping back further around, talk about the Evangelion influences. Uh,
true.
the two girls from there, for those who haven't seen it, are inspired by Ray and Asuka.
Mhm. Very much so. Oh my God. They like Burst Angel, it's like the way that their characters designed. Yeah, the two girls that are eventually going to be hinted at being gay or something. I don't even know if they do anything because I haven't finished it yet. They just look like Ray Ayanami and
Mm.
Asuka full on, but in like skimpier outfits
Right.
and like not nearly as good character writing. But it was
Really
like
gonna show Burst Angel? Really?
where they're wearing cowboy boots and like no pants. Who would have
Huh.
thought?
I would have thought they would really get the characters nailed down in that one.
I like But rewatching My Hime really put me on this like kick where I was like, well, there were a bunch of things I remember like having on my watch list as like a young teenager because I was like, I don't know, the internet said there were gay girls in it. And then I went and I watched them and I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. Like this was what this is what we were working with. And then you compare that to now and it's like, I mean, yeah, you do still get a lot of stuff that's like they're like hinting, but they're
Mm,
not really being explicit. Like I think of Sound Euphonium as like a
mm,
big example where it was like they were on the path. There was like so much like ship bait between the
mm.
two main girls, and then in the second season they were like, just kidding, like told
Gotcha.
you. But even that was better than some other
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, it is a really good example, like almost in real time of oh, I'm sure there's a term for it, but when a group doesn't have representation, they kind of co-opt characters
Mhm.
to like we don't have any real representation. We're going
Oh yeah.
to like project our representation onto this thing and we're going to make it ours. Um, the way that again, the gay community has done with Disney villains is like a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what do they call that? I'm gonna say reclaiming, but that's not really, that seems
Yeah.
like too strong of a word.
We'll figure it out and we'll put it down in the down the doobly doo when we get done. But
Just like working with scraps,
mm,
basically.
yeah,
And
like
I
oh, go ahead.
oh, it's okay. I know, like now I know that there were other series that existed. Like there's like landmark stuff like Rose of Versailles, which is like I don't remember when the anime came out, but I think the manga was from like the 70s.
Oh
And then
wow.
there's Dear Brother, which I started watching with a friend recently. And that's like people pitch that as lesbian undertones. I'm like, dude, that's the tone. Like
Just the tone.
they're like all of there's like handsome girls at the school and everybody has
Mm,
crushes on them. I'm like, no, that's like not an undertone. That's but like now I look back and I'm like, okay, there were other things I just didn't know,
right.
but they also like weren't as accessible and people not as many people talking about them and writing about them and
Yeah, you'd
blah
have
blah
to
blah
be
blah.
lucky enough to find like a bootleg fan dub DVD at a convention with
Hmm.
like 100 other people.
And I think Dear Brother, I think actually the Blu-ray, I bought the Blu-ray that it only came out within the last like couple years, and I think that might have been the first official release
Hmm,
of it in North America anyway, but I also might be lying.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
It's good. It's listed other places as like Onisama A, which is
Hmm.
probably like E. There's Maria's there's this like Catholic school coded show that's a Yuri that I never watched that I remember having on my watch list before. Maria something something something.
Hmm.
Maria watches over us. Okay, I had to look that up. Like that one was good, but even then it's like it's just not a lot. And now it's like I was thinking about it and I was like, imagine if when I was 15 I was watching like I could watch like Bloom Into You instead of fucking Burst Angel. The way things might have, I mean, I don't think I was gonna say the way my life would have changed. Probably it wouldn't have, but it
At
would have
least
at
you would
least
have
been,
had a better show.
I would have had a better show.
Uh,
But it's like, I don't know. It's cool that there's so many. I think they're a lot more willing to make adaptations of Yuri manga now. Because that's always been thriving, that's been going, but it's
hmm.
hard to there's people will talk more about an anime than they will a manga. It's
Right.
just how it is. Um, so seeing stuff, I mean, seeing a Gundam that has, they're like, no, these bitches are engaged. Like,
Yeah, I mean, seeing a Gundam that has a cast of bleh, a cast of mostly women, period,
mhm.
even if they're not touching faces, I think is something.
And
Uh,
I think just the fact, oh, they actually announced the Ariel, which is the Gundam model for
mm,
this series. Supposedly that kit has sold the most out of any out of any Gundam kit so far or something.
wow.
And I was looking at it and I was like, well, I don't know if that's like adjusted for inflation or whatever,
Mm,
but just the fact that it popped off, I was like, yeah, because there were probably a bunch of people who didn't bother with Gundam before because they were like, I don't, it doesn't
yeah.
seem like it's for me. And you do something like this and you're attracting all these new viewers and audiences and
Yeah.
you know,
So much for go woke, go broke.
right? Exactly. It's so silly.
Yeah. So
But
I guess to expand on your credentials here, aside from just the music side with Left of the Dial, which I think maybe I'm wrong, also has kind of a queer bent towards it.
oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I don't think there are any straight employees.
Well, good. We need more all queer companies. But you also do a lot of movie stuff as well. Like you do a lot of writing and talking about movies in the film industry with a focus on um, one. I want to talk about both of these, but one, um, queer representation but also transgressive media.
Mhm.
So we'll stay closer on topic and
Excuse me.
uh, we'll talk about the queer movies and queer media. Um, I guess an important distinction would, boy, I gotta get these words out. What do we mean, or what do you mean whenever you're talking about queer media? Because there are a lot of movies that maybe have gay characters in them, but aren't made for that audience. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of people come back to blue is the warmest color, which, I mean, I've done my research here too. Um, but a lot of people come back to blue is the warmest color as like this is a movie about gay women made by a straight man. Uh, Two Alison Bechdels. Just letting everyone know
Just letting
I know what I'm
everybody
talking
know.
about. Well, I'm not going to say I know what I'm talking about. I'll get canceled before we even get started. I've done some research. That's all I'm saying. Uh, so something like Blue is the Warmest Color is a movie about gay women made by a straight man.
Mhm.
So I don't know. What do you mean when you're talking about queer media?
That's a good question. And uh, some of this I was thinking of when we started, and then I got distracted because I wanted to talk about First Angel. But no, that's a really good question because where do I even start? So for one thing, it's like when people talk about representation, it's such a big net. It's like,
Hmm.
what do people really mean, right? Because sometimes they just mean, sometimes you get stuff where it's like Netflix patting themselves in the back and they're like, we had a side gay character in this thing that nobody cares about. And it's like,
Right.
I guess that's cool because it's like, yeah, you couldn't do that before. I think even in like the 2000s, that would have been like, well,
Mhm.
um, even though like things like existed, like Buffy existed and stuff, but it was still rare. Um, but at this point, it's like, well, come on, like you do a little better than that. But for other people, it's like that's really important to them, and I'm not gonna like take away from that. But I'm like not like an adult. and not like if I was 12, I would probably, this sounds meaner than I mean. If I like having like a side character in some Netflix show would probably like mean the world if I was like really young. But at
Mm,
this point, I'm like, well, no, I'm like trying to actually see things that are like actually telling stories that I would relate to or care about at this point in my life,
right.
not just like,
Just like tossing it in to like check a box back there. We've got a prerequisite gay character.
mm-hmm.
Moving on.
It's like when I see things that are, I don't just want like rom-coms that are safe and like
Hmm.
easily marketable. Like I don't think that's really that exciting, which is also why I think with transgressive media and queer media being like kind of hand in hand, the interest there, because it's like I want to see things that are not marketable. I
Hmm.
want to see not marketable stories be told about groups of people. um and blah 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 blah. Tying back to what you said about blue is the warmest color. I don't particularly like that movie that much. Because I just don't.
Fair enough.
And but I don't think the problem with it is that inherently that like, oh, a straight guy directed it. Because I don't think that's inherently a problem. I think that there are problems with that film, and a lot of it is like, well, apparently that director didn't really treat the actresses very well, and blah 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 blah. Like
Hmm.
those are issues. But I don't think you have to. I actually don't think that like gatekeeping these things is actually that helpful, especially since like I don't think that a creator should have to like come out of the closet and reveal everything about themselves in order to be allowed to tell a story.
Hmm.
Because you get shit like uh the Wachowski sisters.
Hmm.
They made Bound in the 90s. Well, they weren't out as trans then. So people, I'm sure, would have been like, oh, well, these two straight guys made this movie about lesbians. Well, now don't you look silly? Like, so it's like I don't think it's fair to judge stuff on that kind of thing anyway, because you really don't know what is going on with
Hmm.
a creator anyway, and I don't think they're like entitled to tell you. And I also think too, this idea that like I think people forget that directors aren't the only people making movies.
Hmm.
Um, it's like there could be other queer people involved with the process, and then you're gonna write them off because the director's not as like who you want them to be.
Yeah,
Um,
that is a good point. It's really easy to get caught up in the few names that get attached to something as big as a movie. Like
mhm,
you said, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of people. All those names at the end, as somebody that worked on this in some way or another. But it usually gets pinned down to the actors and then the director and maybe the writer,
mhm,
maybe the cinematographer if they're somebody well known.
mhm.
So this kind of ties or segues nicely into another question I was going to bring up later is your thoughts on auteur theory. I feel like we've got a sense of where that might go.
See, it's like, yeah, I think it's, ugh. I think, I mean, obviously there are directors with distinct styles, right?
Mhm.
But a lot of these directors with distinct styles are also working with a lot of the same people over and over again who also have distinct styles and
Sure.
contribute. Like somebody they would consider Quentin Tarantino, right?
He's usually the go-to.
He's a go-to.
Mhm.
Well, people bitch and they're like, "Oh, well, I'm tired of hearing about this guy. This is some guy. I don't care. I don't care about men, whatever." Which is there's some validity to that, sure. And then people being like, "Oh, I want to write off all this stuff." But like a lot of his style is there because of editing.
Mhm.
You know, it's not just his direction. I'm gonna look up her name so I don't sound stupid.
Yeah, I was gonna say he works with that same editor
Mm-hmm.
whose a name I can't remember either. Um,
Sally Menk. Sally Menk.
and
Oh,
so
well, that might be how you say your name. Anyway, yeah.
she's a really integral part to the Quentin Tarantino style.
And it's like, if you don't like if you don't like someone, that's fine. And
Mhm.
if you have like people have criticisms of him that I think are pretty valid. But you can't just be like, meh, this is some guy, because it's like, well, he's not the only person. It's dismissive because there are other people involved with the process. And it's also like not woke to ignore women involved in these filmmakings so that you can shit on someone more effectively. That
Right.
was a thing with oh, I don't remember what the fucking movie is called, but there was a Ridley Scott movie that came out and I still haven't seen it, but it came out a couple years ago
Green
and I
Knight or not?
remember
Not Green Knight, The Duel. I think
I
that was
think
it
I think you're right.
with
Whatever it was.
Matt Damon and Adam Driver.
Yeah. The Last Duel. Yeah.
The Last Duel.
I don't remember. I haven't seen it yet, but I wanted to. But I know like some main plot point is about like a woman being raped. And people were really mad about it, just like reactionary about it, because they were like, well, why is Ridley Scott telling that story? And getting really mad about it on like Twitter and stuff. Well, one of the writers of the movie, there's, I think three, the screenplay was written by Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, and Nicole Holofcener, however you say her name. And people were like, "Oh, there's a bunch of men writing this story," and I'm like, "There's literally a third of the writing credit is like you." And then they're like, "Yeah, but she probably didn't do that much," and I'm like,
Well, that's kind of reductive, don't you think?
"Yeah." That's
Yeah, there's a woman
such
on there. Wow, women can't write movies though.
they're like, oh, they probably just put her there to look better. And I'm like, why would they have done that? Like, that's
Hmm.
you're the only one who's having the it's just silly.
Yeah, well, you just can't please some people. Which, I
Yeah.
mean, I get it. People are frustrated. They have decades and centuries of things to be frustrated about. I think in a lot of cases, the perfect is the enemy of the good, where we'll get something that's not, it's not perfect. It doesn't do everything exactly, but it does some good stuff. Can't we just count that as a win?
Right.
But I mean, I'm a straight white cis guy, so my perspective on these might be a little bit skewed.
Yeah, and I mean there's like things that I don't, I'm not checking every box either. But it's just like I don't know, that's a recurring thing. That kind of answered your question, but also not really, I think. Where it's like I don't know. I feel like a lot of stuff I see about our auteur theories, people getting like reactionary mad and being like, well, this only applies to these same white guys. And I'm like, well, first of all, there are other people involved with creative process. And second of all, I feel like if the only directors are straight white guys, that like might be your problem.
Yeah, that reflects on them a lot more because
Yeah.
in the argument for auteur theory, well, I'm not really on either side. I think that there are some I think that there are people who have such a strong presence within a work that they can have like a really driving effect. So
Mhm.
my go-to is actually coming back, Shinichiro Watanabe, because he had Cowboy Bebop. It's this really big, identifiable thing. It's got so much personality, so much flavor. And then it ended, and they made there two shows came out of that. You had Wolf's Rain, which had the same writer, the same production team. Yoko Kanno did the music, all
Mhm.
the same stuff. And nobody cared. Then you had Samurai Champloo, which only had Shinichiro Watanabe. Which of these two shows feels more like Cowboy Bebop? So
Yeah, I do. That is an interesting because when I hear people, when I see people saying like, recommended if you like Cowboy Bebop, it's Samurai Shampoo is what they point to, but
mm,
it's not even the one that has all the.
so way more
Yeah,
people that worked on Cowboy Bebop worked on Wolf's Rain, and I haven't actually seen it. People say it's good.
I
Um,
watched it a long time ago and I liked it, but I also it's been a long time, so I could be wrong. But I like the soundtrack, I can tell you that.
yeah, I mean soundtrack and Yoko Kanno is going to be good every time.
Exactly.
Um, well, we're not going to get tangled up in Yoko Kanno
The
anime
Zoom
again.
meeting time clock is ticking.
um, so you mentioned the last duel
Hmm.
has a plot point about rape and or sexual assault. That's a thing in transgressive media, which you're also really interested in. And you did write another piece, link in the doobly doo, about how trigger warnings aren't always sufficient for what's actually inside of something.
Mhm. Yeah, there's this whole it's like huge. There's this idea that like if you're I think people like overestimate things like content warnings and trigger warnings. I think people will see that something tackles a certain topic and their immediate thinking is like, that's bad. You can't talk about that.
Hmm.
Or, oh, this must be like, I don't know, some evil piece of media for containing the scene and it's never necessary. And
Right.
that's just not true. And I think that there's this like online culture that's kind of really dismissive of anything tackling anything challenging because it's kind of like I was talking about before, like you have to prove that you're allowed to talk about it. Um, and then like you have these associations with like trigger warnings where if someone says like, oh, this thing has a rape scene in it or something, it's like, well, yeah, but like what kind? Like, is it going to
Hmm.
be, is it like violent, super on screen, something that's going to be upsetting? Is it something that's alluded to? Is it something that's goofy, like something like Bride of Frankenstein, where there's
Hmm.
the like ravaging scene and it's like a comedy thing? Is it that or is it like irreversible or whatever? Like, and all of those things are going to be different levels of upsetting to different people. And it's like, yeah, you should give a heads up, but I think people put like way too much weight on it. And it's just like more complicated than that. And
Hmm.
the internet, it's you only get so much time to talk on the
Yeah.
internet and a tweet and a lot of
The
stuff that's reductive.
yeah, the complexity is not the internet is not a good place to discuss complex issues because yeah, you just don't get the real estate to really dive into it unless you have something like a blog or a YouTube channel or something like that to where that is the content. So, but if you're like on Twitter,
Hmm. Yeah, and it's just
don't
like
don't don't be on Twitter.
people, it's easier. Don't be on Twitter. Yeah, it's more people are gonna see the like 100 character thing that's shitting on something than like a 1,000+ word thing
Mm,
explaining, which is just how it is. You know what I mean?
for sure. And
But
I wanted to talk about Berserk because
I love Berserk.
it ties into like everything we've talked about because it's an old anime manga series and it's got so much transgressive stuff in it. Like I love Berserk as well. It's difficult for me to recommend it to people because you have I feel like I have a responsibility to say you should read this, but also there's a ton of sexual violence all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's like when you're recommending, you should say that. You should mention that. You don't want somebody to just go in. But I also think it's important to be like, but it's not just doing it to be obnoxious. It's not just doing it for a reaction. It like has a thematic purpose. and you could actually get there are a lot of people who get a lot out of Casca's character, and that she gets fucking wrecked.
Yeah.
Like that's like the most triggering stuff, I think.
Yeah.
But it's like,
sorry, go ahead.
no, it's okay. It was like people's knee-jerk reaction is like, well, don't put that in there, it's upsetting. It's like, well, a lot of the like thematic resonance comes from having that in there, but that's a whole thing.
I would argue that there are some parts where
It's excessive.
it doesn't need to be there's a whole scene with the trolls. Like,
Yeah.
we don't
As a
get it. We get it, Mr. Miura. It's very dark. It's very grim. Speaking of dark and grim, we are unfortunately coming to the end here. I didn't get through most of my notes about what I wanted to talk about because we got caught up talking about old anime, which I also want to talk about. So that just means that we're gonna have to have you on again at some point.
That's fine with me. I'll talk forever.
So, well, thank you for coming on the show. Go ahead. I'll give you a chance to plug all your locations, all of your whatever you need or want to plug. And we'll put links down in the doobly-doo when we're done.
Yeah, if I was smart, I would actually like be more consistent about the places I am. But I will say you should go to leftofthedial.fm because that's the main shit I've been working on. A lot of music coverage. It's cool. Support independent musicians. And then if you go there, you can find all of their social media. And then I'm on Twitter pretty much only, and that's at spooky_redacted. Because I used to be Spooky Coochie and somebody took the username from me.
Damn. Thanks, Yvonne.
Honestly. But that's pretty much it. That's where I am.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for coming on. We'll end it
Thank you
here.
for
Thank
having
you for everyone who sat through all of this. We're gonna put that blooper in at the end, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Have a good one.